the foreman would at the end take, let's say, the models that they download into their tablets, go to the site from the trailer, obviously, then overlay, basically place the models on the spot where they are doing currently the work, overlay what will at the end still be built, then basically discuss with the crews on site. Okay, we need to, let's say, pull a line in this direction. We need to maybe deviate here a bit. These are the things here. So so everybody is kind of like on board and aligned with the design intent, as discussed before. And then they can continue executing this. And then further on, maybe there's an area that is already kind of finished executing, so they can QC the place, check if there's any deviations, any maybe mistakes that need to be handled, create issues on site that then can be communicated back at the end if there is any request for information back to the office too. And let's say some part is already in a stage that they want to report on their progress, so they can just select some objects and say these ones are completed. And with that, they can at the end inform the project team and especially also the project managers about what's currently happening, so they can then better steer on how the work is executed.
Hi, just a quick one. If you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to subscribe or follow us on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. It really helps us share practical knowledge with more people. And if you want deeper insights, you can also subscribe to our newsletter at digitalconstructionpodcast.com. All right, let's jump in. Hi, John. Welcome to the Digital Construction Podcast. In this episode, we sit down with John Dolas, the CEO and co-founder of Gamma AR, an augmented reality platform built for construction professionals. John went from design to founding one of the construction tech's most practical AR companies. Today, we explore how augmented reality is closing the gap between digital models and physical sites. So this is very exciting because we talk a lot about AR, VR, but in this case, we'll be talking mostly about AR. Before we start, John, I have a quick question for you, something I ask all of the guests. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received in your career?
I think for me, what I've realized and learned over the years, not only just from one person, is that meaning matters. Meaning is at the end what drives what we are doing, and also gives us the energy to do the things when even things are sometimes hard. So in every, let's say, career, in every situation, we will have times where we struggle, and not because necessarily we don't like what we're doing, but because we like what we're doing, so we do more. And in these moments, meaning keeps us going even further. And that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's very useful. And you, like many, there are so many people who work in this industry. They come from different angles. Like they could be engineers, architects, BIM professionals, and they often maybe dream or think about leaving their daily job and starting something else, right? This is a very common pattern we see, or at least people have the desire. But you train and practice as an architect before moving to BIM management and then digital transformation. But what was it about the profession that made you feel like technology was the real lever to pull?
I've been always kind of in this intersection between technology and let's say the industry itself. I would not even say that it started with one specific point. I was always driven by it. Even if I remember in the first year at university, where we had the first, let's say, CAD exercises, I had to push myself over to what was actually like the exercise and do much more, because I was so much interested in at the end learning or doing things above what was required in terms of the tech part, because just out of curiosity at the end too. And I think that is what drove me. Plus, during my university times when I was still studying, I worked at the same time at the Institute of Computer Architectural Design, and that create also like an environment where I would say where it really fostered this behavior to learn more and to experiment more in terms of technology, to build stuff that was not there. Even trying to build parametric engines with processing at that time. So processing was a solution long time ago. But yeah, uh, maybe it's a short. I can go longer on this, but it's enough now.
Yeah, and now at Gamma, you are really working on a project or a product that it's really focusing on the reality, right? You are augmenting the reality. And in the past, you worked on large-scale projects like airport, hotels. I wonder, where did you see the most painful disconnect between what was designed and what was actually being built?
Mm. I think this is a general experience that everybody of us have in the industry, right? We go to any kind of project at the end, and not everything will be executed in the same way as we had designed or planned it. So as soon as you're on the construction site, you realize things are sometimes different, and sometimes for a good reason different too, because it's not that the design is always perfect, right? And generally, the experience was that when you go to the site, there will be now and then optimizations that need to be done. There will be issues because maybe some things haven't been thought through, or there will be mistakes on site because of, for example, sequencing, coordination topics, and so on. And once you have experienced this by yourself, it's kind of kind of clear. And then the question is how to resolve it. And maybe as a very visual person, as let's say people with an architectural background usually are, it's kind of close as well to be let's say at least inspired to go into the direction trying to resolve it with augmented reality, because it makes it clear. It's and also enables humans. So that's one part.
And you've done many different things in your career, and one of them you've been teaching at the Institute of Computer-Aided Architectural Design. You've been teaching at university, which are very different environment if you compare with the professional practice. But how did that experience, like in university and the Institute of Computer-Aided Architectural Design, shape how you think about technology or adoption or user behavior?
So there's multiple questions. So let's go step by step into that. First of all, the environment that we had at the institute at that time, it was quite special because it was not like like an environment that you would have in a, let's say, engineering or architectural office. Quite different to that because obviously it's an institute. It's dedicated to research and to education, right? So in that context, we had even a bit more of a special environment because the people inside, especially like at that time, Peter Russell, who used to be the professor there, who is now in China, Andreas Diekmann, who you might actually also know from the Clockwork add-in for Dynamo, which is quite used all over the industry, and Thomas Stachelaus, they built like a very beautiful environment where you could just freely think, freely do basically whatever you're interested in. Yeah, there were some daily tasks like teaching students and so on. That was part of that, but in general, we did quite cool stuff. We participated even at that time at a competition for the expo in Shanghai even, and won. So I could travel to Shanghai from university. So that was super cool, and work at the expo and kind of guide that. So it all this shows basically we had like a very let's say open environment to research and think a bit about what kind of problems do we want to solve. So it was an environment that created at the end like a like an openness to explore, and I think this has basically driven me since then a lot. And yeah, so that is part of the question. Now we need to come back to the second part of the question that I'm missing out.
That's okay. We can skip this part, but maybe focus on your BIM career, because you also worked as a BIM manager, and I just want to pick your brain, like your BIM manager brain, because when I speak with you, I feel like you can bring so many different perspectives and bring everything together into something that may be consistent and coherent. So when you think about the BIM manager role, as a BIM manager, you are sitting between the design intent and the reality that we have on the construction site. And as a BIM manager, what do you think this role reveals about the information, where the information consistently breaks down between the reality and what people see in the office?
Well, at the end, we might have, let's say, the perfectly coordinated models, perfectly, let's just pretend it's error-free and there's nothing, everything's constructible, right? But then you go to the site and we still transmit information, not everywhere anymore. This is changing now, but we still for the most part transmit information in terms of just printing plans and sending spreadsheets and sending text, and this kind of makes it harder to stick at the end to what is actually, like as you said, the design intent. So the question is, how can we transmit information as well as possible, as humanly understandable as possible to the people that have to execute, and help them to actually build better and make less mistakes? Because what will happen many times is, and you have definitely the experience too. When you go to the site, there might be coordination issues because somebody the plans were not, let's say, as clear as they could be. So somebody just, let's say, one trade went just directly through instead of doing the deviations that they need to do. Or there are sequencing problems. Somebody started earlier than they should have, or at least didn't build in the order that they should have constructed it, which then leads to then more rework. So these kind of things can be resolved by making at the end the general language that we use now with the BIM models. That is how I would frame it, and bring this to the sites in a just very intuitive and humanly understandable way. Because we don't live in an abstract world at the end. Our world is at the end very, very clear. We are living in a, let's say, at least 4-dimensional world in this. And in our case, we can send this information and transmit the information much better if we just make it kind of unambiguous for the people who have to execute it. And then if there's mistakes or things that need to be discussed, they can catch them early on too, because then they have the possibility to directly understand, hey, here we will have a problem.
Yeah, and to expand on this, I think if you speak with most BIM managers, they will tell you, like, it also depends on which LOD they are working on. They will tell you that most model very rarely makes it to the site in a usable form, right? Sometimes you hear BIM managers say the builder just took the model, chuck it, and restart. But how did that frustration inform what you ended up building at Gamma?
Yeah, And I wouldn't necessarily say it's frustration. I think many things that we are doing at Gamma are because of conviction. It's not that me or my co-founder or we were just frustrated about something and said like this cannot go. It's more like to understand there is really better ways to do it, and that has been, I would say, the driver of our mission. Because yes, you might be frustrated about something. Yes, there might be mistakes. That's one way to do it. But sometimes we do things out of curiosity too, and out of conviction that there is actually better ways, and then we can just jump the step of being, let's say, annoyed by a problem. I'd rather do things because I like them.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of conviction, we touched on this at the beginning when I said we know that many people think or dream or aspire to start their own startup, their own company, and co-founding a company it's a very different kind of commitment, right? Because it's very different from the 9 to 5 work in BIM, for example. What gave you the conviction that specifically augmented reality on construction site was the right problem to go after, rather than any other of the pain points that you may have seen in your career?
Mm. So, in my view, there's definitely, let's say, this beautiful part in augmented reality, which at the end, the AR part, even if it's just like one form of communication, is kind of enabling humans to do more. Yes, of course, we could have gone into directions, or there's a lot of pain points in all kinds of areas, and we could have also decided to say, hey, now let's do robotics. But in our case, I think the beautiful part about augmented reality is that it helps at the end humans to achieve more, and we basically enable people with the let's say superpower of foresight, and that has been something that I would say helped, or was clear that it would help to solve specific problems on the construction site, especially, let's say, if you have an architectural engineering background and you're coming at the end from the planning and design phases. The topic is always like kind of clear, right? So you want to transmit your design intent to the site and make it executed as closely as it can be in the physical world, and this is something that I would say is the reason behind doing augmented reality, making sure that on one side people can execute the design intent directly, correctly, so you don't have much problems. But at the same time, meanwhile, you're like building in the process. You can also at the end, the crews on site can use the tools in order to identify where deviations are, and maybe use it as discussion points, and at the end do QA/QC with that, or also track progress with that. And that's just like, let's say, the basis of that. In addition, because we are, in our case, using this beautiful thing that we have now, which are at the end BIM models, we have the possibility to automate based on the data that comes out of it and analyze that too. And that's a whole different topic, because now we are able to kind of create a system that uses at the end, information from the models, either to, for example, to say, hey, how much did we complete in terms of volumes of concrete so far? How many meters or feet of let's say piping did we install? And we can get like really good data, and then answer at the questions that the teams on site have, the project managers have, and then also at the end the owners will also have.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the key challenges that people face when they try to bring new product, especially in the construction industry. Bring a new product into the market is the problem related to adoption. How do you tell people this is a great idea, they should be using it, right? So it's very hard. And you move from architecture to BIM management to product management before you founded Gamma AR. But looking back, which of those roles taught you the most about building products that people actually want to use?
I think it's the overall experience, the overall combined experience from all different, let's say, tasks and roles that we have, and also your own personal experiences too, right? When you are in the industry for some time and you experience all kinds of, let's say, different fields, you will at the end kind of filter some kind of model of, or define some kind of model of reality that that will at the end, define your decisions in that. And in our case, I think it has been always driven by a few things, which is we always wanted to do solutions that don't require much setup, that are scalable, and at the end are self-explanatory, because we are building. In our case, it's not software for robots; it's software for people at the end. So we need to make sure that everybody, the most amount of people, can use at the end our software, and that means in also again in our case, making it just easily understandable, having no requirements for like setting up on site, which some solutions do or did in the past as well, which led to at the end frustration on site, right? So people don't have the time, and you need to respect at the end, especially on site, people are like under stress, they have a lot to do. So the solutions that we need to create at the end, you need to follow like kind of this philosophy and make sure that at the end, whatever we are doing is being so simple and so quickly to implement that it doesn't require a lot of effort. And this is basically what needs to drive, or what did drive in our case our decisions.
And an interesting aspect related to augmented reality is the evolution of hardware. Of course, you also need to focus on software, right? So there is two aspects. There is a software part and there is the hardware part. Software has always been relatively good for a long period of time now. But I think the hardware side, particularly for AR, has changed dramatically in a relatively short period of time. It's improved, right? So how has the evolution of these devices shaped what Gamma is actually could actually build today, and how people can realistically use it on site?
Maybe it was even helpful for us that at the end, handheld devices like phones and tablets were not the best at the beginning. When we started, we were let's say very much restricted and still need to run like massive models on small hardware, and this made us at the end push the limits of what we can do with software to kind of navigate the limitations of the hardware in some ways, and also in terms of let's say in our case with AR, with positioning, we had to figure out ways to place models on site in an easy way without, again, needing specific hardware for that. We always set our focus on the biggest impact. So meaning running the system on handheld devices, phones and tablets that everybody had. So we had to deal with this with these things. It's true that hardware has developed massively in the last years, especially in the handheld side. The phone that I have has the same processor as the MacBook that I'm using at the moment here. So maybe in a slightly different version, but it's super performant, and that definitely played a huge role in now being able to handle even more massive projects and more massive models. But at the same time, there's been also not only like the part about the models. I think companies like at the end Google or especially Apple in this case, they pushed the interaction with the real world even further. Because, for example, a normal iPhone Pro now or an iPad Pro, they have all these lidar sensors attached to it, and this is exactly to interact with the real world, and we are utilizing them too to at the end make the experience better on site.
Yeah, and we've been talking about Gamma AR for a while now, but we haven't said what actually does, right? So how do you actually use Gamma? I think one way to explain what Gamma does is it's about thinking of what an actual day for a site manager or contractor using Gamma for the first time looks like. So can you share with us what do they see, what do they do, and what problem Gamma does solve for them?
Yeah, that's a good example at the end. So let's just say a day in the life of a contractor, let's say MP contractor on the construction site with Gamma AR. At the end, quite simple. The foreman would at the end take, let's say, the models that they download into their tablets, go to the site from the trailer, obviously, then overlay, basically place the models on the spot where they are doing currently the work, overlay what will at the end still be built, then basically discuss with the crews on site. Okay, we need to, let's say, pull a line in this direction. We need to maybe deviate here a bit. These are the things here. So so everybody is kind of like on board and aligned with the design intent, as discussed before. And then they can continue executing this. And then further on, maybe there's an area that is already kind of finished executing, so they can QA/QC the place, check if there's any deviations, any maybe mistakes that need to be handled, create issues on site that then can be communicated back at the end if there is any request for information back to the office too. And let's say some part is already that in a stage that they want to report on their progress, so they can just select some objects and say these ones are completed. And with that, they can at the end inform the project team and especially also the project managers about what's currently happening, so they can then better steer on how the work is executed. And it's not much different from the GC side, because at the end, the superintendents on site will do similar things. They will just QA/QC the site. They will direct or orchestrate the site at the end too.
It looks like quality assurance and quality control are one of the key aspects related to the usage of Gamma, and we know that rework prevention is one of your headline value proposition, right? So it makes total sense because of the products you build. So, but can you share with us how significant is the rework problem in construction, and what does the data tell you about how much augmented reality can actually move that number?
Yes. So depends on the region. It is varying a bit, but for example, in general, if you compare US Europe, the rework ranges in average range between 5 and 10% of the construction costs. So that means if you have a let's say 100 million building, you are wasting between 5 and 10 million just in rework, which is quite a lot. And this can obviously be prevented. And but we have seen from experience from different things that our customers report, especially with the more complex projects like pharmaceuticals, is they can save up to 50% of their rework. And that's what we are hearing consistently, because it helps them to find a lot of, let's say, issues, and especially some of them are very massive that can reduce this number quite a bit. But that's just one part. It helps also at the end the people on site to be more like at the end faster and do, let's say, the QA/QC also, or perform this in a much faster way, because they don't need to interpret things anymore. It's just kind of clear. Plus, because of the overlay on site, it gives you also one additional ability. You are able to coordinate on site as well quite well, and that also reduces at the end, let's say, further rework, also further discussion points, and makes all our lives easier.
And one of the challenges that in general the construction has is related to how do you address issues and do you resolve them on site properly and effectively, right? So this is a big challenge in general for the construction industry. And there is this concept of component-based RFIs, so request for informations. Can you share with us what this concept mean and how we can actually help with AR?
Yeah. And that brings us at the end to what we use as a language. In our case, again, the BIM models that is now shared from the design stage to the construction site. And it has one beautiful aspect, which is there is IDs that are at the end unique to the components that we can at the end use as a let's say identifier between all the systems. And what that means on site is quite simple. When using augmented reality, we are at the end using these components from the BIM models in order to attach information to that from the site, be it issues, progress information, RFIs at the end. And this information is then being able to send to the right people with the exact location, with the exact objects, and people don't need to search anymore. And especially, let's say, if you have experienced the process in the old way before, which is you get a call from the site and telling you, hey, on the top left corner on room 302, there needs to be some change done. Which top left corner? so you come to a situation where it's harder to explain what happened. And in this case, by using again this model-based tools that we have now happily on site, we are able to resolve them and communicate them much easier and with much more precision. And plus, in our case, because of the AR part, you have the overlay, and you can directly compare and say, hey, this is actually what is the situation on site. That is how the model should have been. How are we resolving this? And that doesn't mean that one or the other one is right, because again, there's going to be optimizations on site. Not everything is perfect in designs too, or there's some subsequent errors that at the end lead to changes that we need to handle. But once we did that, it's kind of like much easier to communicate, meaning you have much faster resolution times as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is always this reality that what people see in the office and what people see on site, they represent two different versions of realities, and it looks like Gamma AR closes that loop for the teams. That's really great. You've been building integrations with Autodesk, Procore, BIM Collab, rather than just trying to create a closed ecosystem. Like these vendors. So one of the objections that the complaints that we hear often, even in this podcast, is that people say, we have all of these vendors that create their own ecosystem. It's closed, doesn't speak with the other products. They try to create their own file system that cannot speak with other platforms. Then we have entities that try to create IFC files to make sure that everything can speak to each other, right? So this is kind of the ecosystem we live in. Instead, you try a different path. You build integrations with all of these products. What was the thinking behind that approach, and what are the trade-offs?
Having stood on the other side, it's kind of clear that there's no other way. So basically, our goal is at the end to make sure that the projects that we are participating in, and we are at the end, let's say we are kind of like a trade in the project too. Let's just say it like or a discipline, or however we want to call it. We are some participant in the project. We want to make sure that these projects are successful. And there's so many different systems in each of the projects. There is no way to have like a data silo and then just have everything, let's say, in one system. It's just that's not how the projects work, especially on the side. So because of that, it was clear from the beginning. We need to connect to all of the systems, make sure that everybody can keep their processes, and we can just at the end work with each other. It would be counterproductive for us if we wouldn't have done this. Plus, again, it's for the projects, that's the right thing to do. So that's what we have focused on.
Yeah, and we touched on this a little bit at the beginning when we were talking about people have the idea they want to start their own startup. I think there is always that point when you think about adoption, right? And construction is famously conservative with technology adoption. It's a very tough market, and probably everybody knows. But when you start a Gamma and you try to bring Gamma to the market, who was actually willing to try it, and what was different about these organizations that were happy to try Gamma?
So since you are based in Australia, actually one of our first users has been in Australia. Shout out to Dean James, cool guy. And I would say the organizations are actually quite, let's say, usually it has been always like normal organizations, but they had always people inside these organizations that were able to drive at the end the implementation of new technologies or innovation, and I would say could also inspire people, and that played a role. And at the end, all of them are either general contractors or are subcontractors or are owners. That's basically most of the people that we work with. And at the end, they all have to produce buildings. Yes, there are some companies that do amazingly well, and they have a culture for innovation that is really great inside that. And they built also, let's say, this environment where they brought in people that are again inspiring, and also they have a vision to progress and think forward too. And obviously, these ones are the ones that we started working with at the beginning. But what matters most is it's not necessarily the type of organization. It's how the culture in the organization is that plays a big role, and how the people. Most of that part is also how the people in this organization are. One of our earliest customers, or some of our earliest customers, were small, very very small architectural offices too, and they were. You wouldn't necessarily expect them to jump into this kind of new technologies as well, but here you go. At the end, humans drive this.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's about people. When in preparation for this interview, I was thinking about all of these people that may want to start their own side project that then becomes a business and then becomes a startup. And these people tend to be technical people. So the idea of selling could be scary for them. And I was wondering, like, I don't know if I should consider you a technical person. Probably you are, because you come from the industry. You're not coming from a sales role. So I wanted to ask you, how do you actually sell AR into a project team where you may be talking to a side of foreman, a project manager, a BIM coordinator? There are so many different roles, and they all have different concerns. So how do you handle that situation?
I think there's been always two sides to that. We never pushed Gamma into to people that didn't want to use it. That's not the purpose of us. Most of the time, we were lucky enough that it was so clear that people just came to us, and we especially the beginning. That was basically all of those people. When we were a small team, you don't have the possibility to really do much else than this. And that at the end drove step by step our growth. I think what really matters is at the end for people who are skeptical just to try it out. And that's because in all projects you'll have some people that are, let's say, super hey, I want to try it out, I know it will help me. And there's going to be some people that are like, I've done this for the last 40 years. What does this child try to teach me? And what we have seen over and over and over again is that as soon as they go together to the site and experience at the end how it works and experience the benefits, the skepticism drops quite fast. And that's one part. The other part is how do you, at the end, educate and teach people in a way that they can repetitively continue doing this inside their own companies. So basically, in that way, we are always like following this notion of training the trainers inside the companies, make sure that there's like a good base of champions that can, at the end, propagate this forward.
Yeah, and I can imagine probably at the beginning when you started, it was mostly maybe you and the other co-founders trying to sell Gamma, right? But then over time, the sales process, the sales conversation matured and evolved. And if I think about it, you mentioned the skeptic people that they maybe don't believe in the technology, or there are also other reasons why people may not want to try or buy your products. Could potentially be just the inertia related to the existing workflow, the attitude where people say, I just want to keep on doing the things I've done the same way because they are familiar with that process. So did you find that over time, as your product has matured, the sales conversation has changed?
Yeah, a lot from the beginning. But the whole industry has matured. It's not just that the product has matured. People have matured. There's been also generational changes that everything has influenced it. And what we can see is BIM models got much better. That means that like this reluctancy to use BIM models on site also reduced. Our software got better. The hardware got better. The processes are now much more digitalized, especially during COVID. That pushed a lot the digitalization as well. So the whole industry moved into one direction, and that really changed the game. And really, floodgates have been opened. It is I would say compared to 6 years ago, the world is, especially for us, it's very different. Feels very different. At that time, you need to deal with let's say multiple boundaries in maybe models, maybe hardware capabilities and so on that we don't have to deal with today anymore because we have just resolved them either on the software side or now it's partly on the hardware side too. But we pushed all of the things that we can push in our technology, keep continuing pushing this to at the end keep with our philosophy, right? Making it as simple as possible so everybody can use Gamma. So that worked.
Yeah, and sometimes it's very hard to deal with the skeptic people, right? The people that think that they don't want to use these new products. At the same time, you don't want to just dismiss their concerns because you want to address their concerns. And you've probably seen it all, right? All of the different arguments against AR on site. But what's the strongest argument you found against AR on site?
That the people have worries that their teams cannot follow up or implement it, and that is a real worry. Because it comes at the end from like a conviction that either maybe the project is too busy, maybe they think they don't have tech savvy enough people with them in the specific team, and it is a valid concern. It is not that it's not like you cannot overcome it. So what I would say is it really depends on each of the teams, in each of the project teams. But what I've also seen is as soon as you have one, two, let's say, more tech-savvy people or digital natives at the end on the project, usually it's like the people who graduated just shortly before. They will do perfectly well, and giving them at the end the tools will inspire the rest as well, and then kind of changes too. And this is the same situation it has been also with BIM implementation in the past as well. It's just you need to overcome existing processes and to overcome worries that people might have. And for that, the best way is to just learn how to do it and learn that the reasons why something exists, and then see if it can benefit you. And as at the end, everywhere in the world, construction projects are at the end construction projects. They all will benefit at the end from this technology, because it's kind of clear.
Yeah, and there is often a gap between what technology promises and what it actually delivers on in the field, right? And sometimes this could be just perception that the users, because maybe they haven't discovered what the tool can actually do, or sometimes realistically, like it's real, the technology is not delivering what the user expected. How do you make sure that Gamma AR doesn't become just another tool that gets used twice and then abandoned?
So what's super important is in the conversations that you have with at the end the people that you will work with in the future, that you are sticking to truth and make sure that there is trust. Because if trust fails, then what you explains happens. So the way to at the end ensure that it just doesn't get used once or twice and then gets dropped out is to make sure that the people are educated. So we are doing quite a lot of effort at the end to do that. There's teams that are perfectly handling, let's say, our solution complete on their own. But what we do for teams that have problems is we will go to the sites. So we are very, very, very often at the end on all kinds of construction sites all over the globe. So that costs us a lot of time, and but at the end it's also kind of beautiful because you learn also something from that, especially how different let's say cultures, different areas have different strength in one or the other areas. But when we go to the site, we also help to make sure that people are, like, let's say, educated in the best way, that they know, okay, these are the best practices, this is how I should handle this situation. Or maybe sometimes think around the corner, because we have seen all the kind of cases, we can direct them a bit better. But that really helps both sides, I would say. It helps us and it helps also the other team.
Yeah, and speaking about objections, I was also thinking about maybe there is a company like a builder. There is somebody who is a champion of technology. Like, people really like to adopt new technologies. There is a lot of these people in these construction companies, and sometimes they just find the project director that says, "We've managed without AR for decades. Why do we need it now?" So, what can this person say to that project director?
I would say just try it out. That I mean, there's nothing better than experiencing it yourself, and that will at the end remove this thought. It's quite simple. Once you see it on site, it's super clear. The benefits are super clear, and the best way at the end to get the project directors also on board is, let's say you want to drive that's innovation, you want to drive technology, especially with us. And maybe you're in the BIM team somewhere and you want to make sure that the project is running well. Go to the site, take one of the superintendents with you, let the superintendent use it, and then he will talk to the project director. And they know if the superintendent says something, that's going to be not like a early adopter request. It's going to be more like someone that is like very convinced then. And that makes a difference.
Yeah, and just to change gear, I want to focus on the company, like the idea of building a construction tech startup through the early growth into a scalable business. It's a big challenge. It's hard. But you're also gone from practitioner to researcher to consultant and to finally startup CEO, which is very exciting role. I think also stressful, but it'll probably be a roller coaster. I'll imagine. But what has been the hardest thing you need to learn that none of these previous roles prepared you for? Because every time you have a new role and you realize that you didn't know certain things, but what has been the hardest one to learn?
When building up a company, what you learn is that all different people in the company perceive the world differently. They really have different, let's say, versions of reality in their minds, which means dealing with all different psyches is really challenging. It also teaches you a lot. It also makes you a lot value different perspectives, and it's something that I think I'm very happy that I can experience now, especially in our company, which is a very open company, very communicative company internally, and very outspoken too. It's great that I can experience this. Makes my life sometimes also harder, but also more beautiful.
Nice. And another key challenge is you're building a product that operates in different markets, with different level of BIM maturity and digital readiness. So I'm thinking about what people do in Australia versus certain countries in Europe versus the United States. It's kind of like everybody uses this technology, but with different level of maturity, I would probably imagine. But then at the end of the day, you're still trying to build one product to rule them all, right? So it's hard. So how do you build a product and also a go-to-market approach that works across that range of maturity and digital readiness?
At the end, it's quite simple. On the product side, there's been the variations are more with file types in specific areas that we had to deal with. That means maybe in France, they like to push more the IFC topic. And if you go to the US, it's mostly Revit and Navisworks. Some regions have slight different variations of whatever, let's say, platforms they're using. So we started at the end with the things where we had that had the most impact for us in terms of for the customers that we could reach, and at the end developed it in this way. And that's one side. And in terms of how we at the end went to market in different regions has been it's always kind of the same approach. It comes mostly from, I would say, a pull more than a push. It has been always, let's say, bigger general contractors that have complex projects that reach out to us, that we start working with. And then once you have some kind of notoriety in a specific region, it kind of develops by itself too, because then they've seen it in their own region being used, and then step by step this works. Another way that also, I would say we could connect with the local industry. Has been also with local partners that, again, people that are convicted that this makes sense, that maybe have consulting services and then want to use in their projects, and then it goes through them into the either the contractor side or the owner side. So it's kind of always like a network of influencing people. That's just how it has been. But we are lucky enough to being more pulled than having to really go out and convince people that this is the right way. People I think get it very quickly. So that was always good.
And as a founder, I'm sure you're always thinking about problems that you may want to solve, because it's probably like a trait of personality. People end up being founder of tech companies. And I was wondering, what is the problem, if there is one, in construction that Gamma AR doesn't solve yet, but that you think about the most?
Oh, good question too. There's actually probably quite a lot, but I think what I would focus on today, at least from what I've learned, is there's going to be labor shortage, or we have a lot of labor shortage already. It's going to just get much worse, and we need to deal with this. And so probably having or focusing on robotics is not a bad idea in order to navigate these problems that we will have, because let's say all the experience, especially like all the people that were mastering things on site, all craftsmen, they're just getting less and less, and especially the super experienced ones are going into retirement. And we will need to deal with that. We'll have to do with less people more. So that means that part is, I think, something that needs resolution. I don't know how fast the robotics side will develop. That's not the area of business where I am in. But I just hope that they're fast enough. Yeah.
And John, we are at the end of this episode. If people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
So they can reach out to me over at the end my LinkedIn, or they can just go to our website, which is www.gamma-ar.com, and then just reach out to us through our system. So yeah, happy to talk to anyone, and you're all welcome.
John, thanks for joining us on the Digital Construction Podcast.
Thank you so much for the invite, Andre. It has been a pleasure.